Nice one, Sid. You made a cool game. Actually, you made a cool series of games that have defined what a Civilization game is for hundreds, no, thousands of years. Civilization, Sid Meier's cool game, came out in 105 BC. For The Rock. It's cemented genre tropes that have repeated themselves over time ever since, and here they are. There's a map. You explore it and you bump into your neighbors who do not like you. Started off with squares and then grew 2 more sides over time. There's little guys. They walk around doing looking, trade, or war. Or looking for trade war, I don't know. But most importantly, there's a tech tree. A shining web of nodes that represent all of human progress in a slick menu system. You get animal husbandry, then you get human husbandry, then you get a human husband who you love and give a little kiss. And these core pillars hold up civilization like a chair. A chair that you sit on and have a pleasant time. Sturdy, reliable, trustworthy, 4 legs, horse. And this delectable chair has held aloft many dozens of Civilization games over the years. Endless Legend, Stellaris, Humanity, Halo Reach, Age of Wonders, Total War, the list goes on. And these games might remove or change a leg of the chair, but its structural integrity still remains intact. The perfect place to rest your weary cheeks. Clicking tiny things, moving them around, having strategy happen in your brain, great! I don't like any of them. Okay, I do like them, but only for a bit. I like the early game. I like when things are knowable and tense and full of possibilities. Your action economy is lean and you have fewer decision points with greater impact. And after that, it sucks. You have such a dizzying number of units and technologies that your turns take 15,000 years to action, and administering a vast empire becomes tedious. And I appreciate this is all just personal taste. You might have a brain big enough for this stuff, but I don't. I was hit on the head with a rock. So what's the solution? What's the right game for me? Well, it's on the tabletop. I love a dense strategy board game because they still push the same buttons, but the restrictions on being a physical object means you have to rein in the excesses to keep everything playable. I mean, you don't have to, you can be a sicko. But generally, heavy strategy games deliver exactly what I want. They capture the broad strokes beautifully, and they peter out just as things start to get a little overwhelming. And my favorite of them all, after many, many years, is this tiny box. Innovation is a 2011 card game designed by Carl Chuddick with graphic design from the first person to ever touch a computer mouse. I am dispassionate about graphic design. I know, that is not the best start, but listen, don't leave just yet, because what if I told you this is one of the best Civilization games yet made, because it takes a very different approach to tackling the genre. This is not a chair. It's a hammock, or a beanbag, or it's lying face down in the grass in a field. And it's really, really good. Alright, how do you actually play Innovation? The game begins with 10 decks of cards, laid out in a clock formation on the table. Wow, brown. This game is the color of nicotine. It looks like it has been dried. Same great game, all new look, says the box. It's not so bad for the 90s, I think to myself, before seeing the 2018 publication date. Anyway, each of these decks of cards is an age, starting with prehistory, and then ascending through medieval, exploration, enlightenment, until you reach the precipitous edge of the information age. Or the prudence age, depending on what version of the game you have. I'm just jumping in here very quickly to explain that this video was mostly filmed using Innovation 3rd Edition. It's the copy of the game that I've played the most of, and it's what you see in most of this video. But Innovation 4th Edition and Innovation Ultimate just came out. They look a bit nicer, they make some tweaks to the gameplay, and Ultimate packs in all of the expansions, the ones that I've got 3rd Edition versions of on the table over here. We'll talk about all this stuff later on in the video, but I just wanted to say that what you see on screen here is 3rd Edition, so the version that you might get in a shop might look and feel a little bit different to this one. Each of these cards in each of these decks represents a different innovation, which I'm going to call technologies in this video in a way that's going to be really frustrating to some people. It's just easier this way, otherwise we're going to run into problems talking about the innovations of innovation, and it's gonna get weird. In the prehistory deck, we've got mysticism, sailing, or archery. We got banking, physics or coal in the exploration era, and globalization, stem cells, and AI in the information age. And ultimately, players of innovation are trying to do two things. To first build an engine from these various technologies, and to then crank that engine as fast as possible to accelerate themselves through the ages, and hopefully earn a few points along the way. Because each cluster of points earned lets you achieve an age. 5 points for age 1, 10 points for age 2, 15 for 3, and so on and so forth, increments of 5 points. And if you get to claim a certain number of these achievements before your opponent does, you win. Easy. Even easier is what you do on your turn. You take just 2 actions from a list of a possible 4. Draw lets you draw cards, meld lets you play cards into the little tableau in front of you. Achieve will let you grab one of those achievements that I just mentioned, if you've got the points. And the final action is the most important of all. Dogma. I don't really know why it's called this. It's a bit weird. They should have just called it like activate or something, but no. Dogma. Dogma is what lets you take the action of one of your played cards. And these actions are the bread and butter of what you're doing in innovation, because each one will let you do a weird, unique thing. You've got straightforward effects like drawing and melding cards with greater efficiency, or turning cards in your hand into points for your score pile. But you've also got more exciting leaps. Perhaps removing cards to jump up multiple ages at a time, or swapping cards in your score pile with those that are in your hand. Cards like canning are even weirder. Score your own top cards if they're not keeping up with the times. Dismantle your stuff for points. Now all of these dogma effects will have an associated icon that you'll find all over all of the cards, and you'll keep a running total of how many of these icons you have, because if your opponent has equal or more of that icon than you do, then they get to share in the effects. So it's important to keep track of where you're strong and where they are weak. And now we get to get into the spicy stuff, because this is especially relevant when it comes to I demand effects, which subject anyone with fewer matching icons than you to the card game equivalent of a swirly. And this is where things start to get a lot more busted. Engineering has you force your opponent to demolish all of their castle cards and dunk them into your score pile. Navigation doesn't even need you to have castles. You just suck points directly out of their bank account. But of course, these are even more ridiculous when you combine them with other cards. Map making lets you take any 1-point cards in the score pile of an opponent, and medicine lets you swap the leftover high cards with the ones that you just stole. Statistics let you turn the opponent's score pile into their hand, and explosives lets you grab the best ones straight out their mitts. Oh, and there must be a mistake, right? Like, what stops you from doing this over and over again? Nothing at all. You can just keep doing it. It's horrible. For dweebs like me, this stuff is about as thrilling as it gets. Innovation's vast card pool reminds me a lot of the box of Lego that you might have had as a kid. Sure, there's complete sets in there that you can build, but isn't it just a lot more fun to stick random bits together and play? It's almost a little bit roguelike. The big box of Lego, the ultimate roguelike. Right, hear me out, because initially you have very little control over the cards you have access to, and exactly what is going to be the cornerstone of your build might appear instantly, or it might slowly emerge one card at a time. And that cornerstone might last you just the early ages, or it might carry you through the entire game. But either way, spotting opportunities to pivot is deeply rewarding, finding that one card that will click into place and turn your meandering run into something bonkers. And I want to just take a second to talk about how well drawn these cards are thematically. The internet floods your board with new information. Monotheism collapses the ideas that aren't yours. Combustion gradually burns its way through cards, and fission contains the horrifying power to return both players to the Stone Age. These cards and the little engines that they are part of are the only way of activating your civilization, but they still paint a vivid picture. There's no map, there's no little clickable fellas, there isn't even a tech tree. It's more like a tech soup that you slowly submerge yourself into. Now don't worry, there is still some structure, because each technology has a color, and like colors will stack on top of each other. You'll bury an old technology to make way for a new one. And there's only 5 colours, so you can have a maximum of 5 different top technologies at a time. It's a restriction, but a necessary one. It means that everything you can see is fresh, impactful, and relevant to your game state. There's not so much information on the table that you can't remember exactly what all of your cards do and the gist of what your opponent's does. This 5 top card limit puts a dampener on quite how ridiculous you can get, but there's still a lot of scope for things to get quite silly, to delight in broken combinations and infinite loops. But all of this stuff only gets to be as wild and rolling and free and strange as it is by being catastrophically wonky on your first few plays. Now, over time, there is a really interesting strategic depth and nuance to innovation. It just dawns on you slowly. It takes a second to puzzle out the card pool and begin appraising the true value of each and every effect. But in game 1 and 2 and 3 and maybe even 4, it can almost feel like a joke game. Your opponent is gradually turning you into paste using the seemingly inexhaustible power of anatomy? If you're one of those people who wants a good chance of being able to use their huge and muscular brain to seize victory on the first game of innovation, this time you're going to have to play in the sandpit rather than conquer it. But if you approach this game with an attitude of play for your first few games, then you're far more likely to get to the stage where it becomes strategic and tense. But if you approach it expecting a sharp, lean, head-to-head treat from the jump, then you're going to be disappointed. You'll have a bad time. Now, to me, this is a huge selling point and entirely part of the charm. Innovation starts as one thing and then gradually turns into another over time. It starts off creative, playful, and daft, and then, slowly gets a little bit nasty. And this is especially true at 2 players, which, if I'm being honest, is the only player count that I truly recommend innovation at. It's basically the only player count I ever play this game at. That is true for the majority of folks who play the game, I think. At 2 players, things just feel far more knowable. It's much easier to keep track of their tableau, it's easier to keep track of the icons within it, it's easier to keep track of the cards drawn from each deck, it makes the game brisk and snappy and sharp. Your mileage may vary at other player counts. I take no responsibility for what might happen to you out there. But Tom, I hear you say, what about all the previous decisions lying just underneath that shiny engine you've built? Have they just gone away? That doesn't feel very civilization. Well, yes and no, because many game effects will have you splay your stacks, revealing icons that were previously hidden. So whilst the effects of a card might vanish, their legacy persists. If you continually build up technologies that center around this little nature icon, then splaying the stacks will reveal a rich history of being in touch with nature. As well as this, some dogma effects might remove cards from your tableau. Someone might take issue with your development of refrigeration and revert you back to the good old days of masonry. And remarkably, this isn't always a negative. Having your tableau destroyed might result in you finding an even more broken combination than what you started with. You can get messed up by your opponent, but their rabid attacks on you could uncover a hidden zeal. They break your engine into a different engine, an engine that is far more dangerous. And as the game draws on, innovation does a wonderful job of showing the rapid acceleration of history as the effects get crazier and crazier. This final deck, the Information Age, it has cards that almost seem like jokes. Many of them will have you just flat out win, and I think they're great. These bonkers cards put a firm cap on things. If the game has gone on that long, it needs to end soon. It kind of reminds me of Lethal League. Lethal League is one of my favourite couch multiplayer games. It's kind of platform fighter baseball. Smack the ball and it turns your player colour. If anyone else gets hit by it, they're out immediately. And so they smack the ball right back, turning it into their player colour and increasing its speed. And this repeats, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until the ball is going so absurdly fast that it begins to rip apart time. At this point, the ball has so much energy behind it that a single slip-up spells the end. And this is kind of what the endgame of innovation feels like to me, which might be a bit worrying. All the effects that you have access to are so weighty, impactful, and ridiculous that it takes a similarly busted engine to combat them. And if you drop behind for even a second, the game slams shut. Innovation bills itself as a game of infinite possibilities, and truly do no two games feel entirely alike. Will you both be destined to Stone Age squabbles or navigate a mid-game of carefully planned developments? Will your game end in nuclear Armageddon or become a kind of maximalist utopia? And that's the real joy, right there. There's no build order or path to victory based on what civilization you're playing. Not at all. This is a Civ game for the tactically minded. It's all about the immediate decision space. All you have are the cards in front of you and decks of possibilities to take a punt on. You build gradually outwards, ever wary of the opponent sitting opposite you. In that way, to me, it strikes a truth of human development, boiling down all of history to a series of instanced choices that build over time to crescendos, a legacy of stacked cards, and a treatise on how fortune, both good and bad, guides civilization. Tom, this all sounds cool. How do I get started? The ideal point of entry for about 90% of people is going to be Innovation 4th Edition. This is the most updated and polished version of the game with the best graphic design of the lot, which isn't saying much, but it is an improvement. Throughout this video, I have mostly been showing you my copy of Innovation 3rd Edition because I love it, and look how worn and dogged and tired it is. Bless. 4th edition or even 3rd edition are the things to buy if you are interested in getting into innovation. At 20 quid, it is an absolute steal for one of the weirdest and smallest games that you can chuck into your collection. It's excellent, it's portable, and it is weird, but it is also a gateway into something far bigger. Publisher Asmadi Games recently made Innovation Ultimate available for purchase, which comes with a huge box and all of the expansion content for the base game, retailing for more like 60 quid. And if you thought the base game of Innovation was crazy, the expansions are absolutely demented. Alright folks, here is the speedy guide to Innovation expansions because it gets wild out there. Innovation 3rd Edition had 4 different expansions that you'd buy as separate boxes, but Innovation Ultimate packs all of those into just one box, as well as piling in an extra 5th expansion, just for fun. And each one of these expansions adds 100-ish new cards to the game, effectively doubling the card pool of base game Innovation. And the Ultimate Edition has made a huge number of tweaks and changes to make it so it's easier to play with multiple of these expansions at once, tripling, quadrupling, sextupling the number of cards on your table. Help! But don't worry, I am here to guide you through all of these expansions. Quite badly. We'll start off with the simplest of the bunch, Cities of Destiny, that adds cities. These are cards that'll give your tableau some extra icons here and there, as well as having one-off effects that'll give you some free draws, free splays, or searches through the base deck. The cities accelerate the pace of the game, but they're not the most exciting of expansions that Innovation has to offer. They're just a little sprinkling of extra stuff on top that makes your weird engine crunch quicker. I like that Brisbane gives you colossal amounts of points, but doesn't really have anything else going on. Echoes of the Past is the next expansion introduced, and it's a little bit more exciting. It's got a little bit more going on, because it introduces echo effects. Remember how I said that you cover up the effects of cards, but their legacy persists? That's not true anymore. Now the effects persist as well, crammed onto these tiny spaces in cards like a microprocessor made of rules. I think that's what a microprocessor is anyway, but I don't really know. When you would usually activate the effect of a top card, you now scroll back through your history and take any of the little bonuses you'd sprinkled along the way, compounding simple activations into mega combos. And all of these cards are themed around stuff. Just bits and bobs you'd have lying around. Congratulations, your tableau now contains dentures, morphine, esports, a machine gun. I could list the names of these cards for ages, they are delightfully silly. But what it feels like to play is as though you're being given a guided tour of a museum on roller skates. History whipping past you, turns lasting centuries as players fire off 16 powers a second and jettison themselves into the late game in record time. It is mad. And speaking of stuff just lying around, Artifacts of History adds artifacts. These are cards that you dig up by lingering around in the same age for too long. And they'll sit just outside of your tableau on display. And at the start of your next turn, after putting them on display, you will showcase them to everyone around the table, which usually involves you getting a benefit and them having a penalty of some kind. And after that, you'll put them into a museum. This game is so weird. But even weirder is the theming on these cards. The Declaration of Independence, the Holy Grail, the Rosetta Stone, the Shroud of Turin. These are good artifacts. Nice. But there's also, what does the fox say? And reader, I cringed. Oh, Musk's Tesla Roadster? I cringed even harder. The fact that it mentions him by name and not like anyone else, it's like it's trying to convince you that he's actually done something. And I get that they're referring to the one that they sent into space and not like the invention itself, but still, sus. It's suspect. It's Musk glazing and I am not here for it. Why does the card not explode or drive into the nearest pedestrian or wall? It's very unrealistic. For real though, this did actually kind of frustrate me. Like, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt here because most of this game's production happened pre-Salute, at least. But come on now, he was always a wrong'un. Speaking of controversial figures, how about the Margaret Thatcher expansion? Figures in the Sand adds leaders to the game, including this horrible island's very own bog creature. RIP, she would have loved Grok AI. Leaders introduce karma effects and auspice actions. Please, dear God, can this game do anything in a normal way? These basically just give you passive effects. And they are, say it with me class, absolutely nutso. Oh, you splay your cards up, do you? Cute. Peter the Great lets me issue a war decree, and I don't know what that even means. I'm using Beethoven tech. I'm on that Gilgamesh type beat. You know, maybe my favorite of the lot is the baffling inclusion of Bear Grylls. Seriously though, Mr. Grylls has essentially the same gameplay effect as nuclear fission. As soon as he arrives, you remove all cards from the game except for his personal deck of survival cards. A self-contained minigame where most of the cards you have access to just make you lose because you don't have any water or fire or shelter or some combination of the three. What on earth is going on? The last expansion is the most recent addition to the bunch, and it is exclusive to Innovation Ultimate Edition. It's called the Unseen expansion, and it might be my favorite, secretly. All the other expansions to Innovation put a whole load of new ideas into the mix. They're mad, I kind of love them for it, but they also introduce some really overwhelming rules text. But the Unseen expansion keeps things to a single page of text, and the new rules are pretty simple. The new unseen cards are drawn first before other cards are pulled, and they can go in your safe, a little personal stack of achievements. And the cards themselves all have a somewhat coherent theme. They're all about subterfuge, hidden information, secrets. Swiss bank accounts, passwords, surveillance, Secret Santa. Oh yeah, don't worry, it's still weird. I mean, just look at the effect of Slot Machine if you're curious. What a card. What a game. And I think this one might be my favorite because it is just the most straightforward of the bunch. It is the simplest. After 4 expansions adding all kinds of weird new things, the Unseen expansion is the closest they've come to just adding a bunch more cards into the game, and that's it. All the other expansions created at least one moment where I just felt a little bit overwhelmed, and that wasn't the case with this one. It's just a big wad of new stuff that's fun and really wonderfully themed. I like it, it's simple, there's a reason why they recommend going for this one first before dabbling with all the rest. And so I, your bold and noble reviewer, have rigorously played all of these expansions to death to tell you which one of them is the best. Right? No. I played all of them twice, and I had a really pleasant time with each one, and then I stopped, because I just really like base game Innovation. It's just really good. The expansion stuff is sort of where my experience with Innovation ends, because the base game, this small form factor dinky little box, it's gone with me everywhere. It goes to the pub, it goes on holiday, it goes on hikes. It's just great. A little sharp box of delights that you can pop in your bag and take with you anywhere. But when I'm faced with the prospect of hosting a game night, I'm not drawn towards this game being the star of the show. But it is a centerpiece game night game for many other folks, especially for couples. But not for me and my couple, because my partner does not like this game and refuses to elaborate on why.
Why don't you like Innovation? Stinky.
Innovation Ultimate, with all of its expansions in the box and a ton of room for sleeved cards, it feels almost like getting into a CCG, something like Netrunner, and comes with all the positives and negatives of that. There is enough stuff in this box to be a hobby unto itself. So if you're excited to dive in and you want a truly decadent possibility horizon, then of course, spring for Innovation Ultimate Edition. But if it turns you into a real freak, a real innovation head, you're not going to be annoyed that you spent an extra 20 quid on the portable version of your new favorite game. And that's it. That is our introduction to Innovation, one of the weirdest, most interesting card games that money can buy. Not much money can buy, it's so cheap. And I hope this video rights the wrongs of the past. You see, in 2012, Quinns did a review of, I think, the second edition of Innovation, and he said it was good, he said he really liked it, and then at the end, he didn't recommend it. Because there's other good games out there? I don't really know why. Listen, Shut Up and Sit Down recommends Innovation. I said it, it's a great game, it's worth getting. Screw it, Shut Up and Sit Down thinks Innovation is a banger. We've got a new badge for this one. It's a banger, it's real good. 2 thumbs up. Innovation freaks, I'm talking to you now. You gotta share this video with your friends so that you can get them into the weird brown box that you keep bringing to game night. And then, and only then, can we review all the weird stuff. Because then everyone's gonna be an innovation freak like us, and it's gonna be good. Bye.